Hello and welcome back to the Two Fools Making It podcast. I am Dariustoranastudios and I'm here with Darkspring.
Hello.
And we are going to be talking about one of our old favorite games from the tabletop. We've mostly talked about video games so far, but we wanted to make sure we're talking about all kinds of nerd stuff. So we're going to be talking about some tabletop war games today. And the one we're talking about is Warmachine and Hordes from Privateer Press. So, Darkspring, you got into the hobby before I did. What kind of brought you into the hobby?
So I was at the game store that we met at. Trying to remember exactly what it was. Oh, yeah, it was on the exact actually same table where you came around and were constantly talking to me and the other guy that were playing. And I saw these fantasy game going on, and I was like, oh, I was kind of just curious about it. And I started asking them about it. That's when I was talking to them, and that's when I found out it was a lot cheaper to play than Warhammer 40,000 or Warhammer Fantasy at the time, and I found out it was kind of, or you could control individual models, and when you were shooting, you got to tell your guy who you were going to target and shoot. That was something that always drove me so nuts in Warhammer 40,000. Was it was just squad aims at squad B, and so they could just choose which targets were hit, and so that's kind of what drew me into getting into Warmachine and Hordes.
Okay. Yeah, Warmachine was my first ever war game that I played. I had heard about Warhammer 40K, but I was really into like magic and stuff at the time. And so I've already kind of told the story where I walked in the back room and saw you guys playing, and I was like, "Oh gosh, this looks so cool!" And so I ended up getting into Circle really, really quickly, and then um, I expanded into a couple other factions. But yeah, it just it hooked me so fast, and it became just an absolute obsession for me.
Now this is the part I don't remember. I've tried to remember this part. So I was playing in the back with the other guy playing Circle, and you kept coming back and forth and asking a bunch of questions. When did you play your first game after that?
It was within like a day or two.
So did you just ask him to come in and teach you? Because I don't believe I was the first one you played with.
You were not. I did play with him first, and then I played 2 games with him. I played 2 games with the press ganger Menoth John, and then I played one with the guy who played Trolls. And that was the first one. He was the press ganger that played Trolls.
Okay, the press ganger. Okay.
Yeah. And that was the first game that I found out that they were going easy on me on the other ones. I thought I was doing great because I won 3 games in a row, and I was just riding high. And then he was like, "All right, so now you've had your first couple of wins. Time for you to lose." And he tabled me. I don't even think I dealt a damage to him.
So when I first started, this is the troll guy who was the press ganger. He actually really liked Scorn, and he was very happy that I had picked Scorn. And he's like, Scorn's just gonna murder everybody. It's just doing all this stuff, and I'm like, oh yeah, it's just all good. Well, I was playing with him, the other guy that played Circle a ton, and the guy that played Legion quite a bit. Well, we were doing a team game, and they're like, we want to do a 50-point game. I didn't have enough models for a 50-point game. I had enough for like 45 points or something like that. And I'm like, you know what? You guys can just have the extra. Scorn's just that powerful. The one guy, the Circle player, is like, oh, confidence. I got slapped around like no tomorrow. I like one of my beasts brought down like 3 of their infantry, and then I got tabled as well. I was like, oh my gosh. These guys kept telling me how like high armor Scorn was, like just how heavy hitting it was. I could not go toe to toe with any of them without just getting slapped around. when I almost hung up the game, there was another guy that played Crix a lot. And this guy I don't think would have been around before you came in. He didn't play a ton.
Hmm.
And he played a list, and I just ran all of my beast up there. I didn't play much infantry at the time or much support. Just ran in there, and I was just trying to wreck these little guys. Well, he kept bringing them back to life. So at the end of the game, I didn't kill one model. It's just like, oh my
Oh,
gosh. So I know what you said, but they took it easy on me the first couple of times, and then all of a sudden it just was like, yeah, it was a
yep.
very long time before I started winning any games.
Yeah, that's the same with me. Man, after that game that I lost, I could win against you every now and then, but in the beginning, you were just brutal with me too. I know a
It
couple
felt way
times you
too good to
definitely,
win.
yeah, I know a couple times you let me win because you were like, oh, I don't want him to quit, but eventually I got to about equal level with you where we were about 50-50.
Yeah.
Um,
When you play
but
somebody that much, you start learning kinda how to beat them every now and then.
mhm, yeah, and but it was just, oh man, so I kept getting my stuff shoved in, and I was like, "Oh man, maybe Circle just can't cut it." And at the time, Circle was considered one of the weaker factions. That did change. Circle became like the most powerful faction for a long time. But at the time, Circle was considered one of the weakest factions. And so I was like, "Oh man, I see Darkspring doing really good with Scorn. I'm gonna pick up Scorn."
Yeah, you
So
jerk.
I picked up Scorn, and he got so upset because he was like
I
the
was
only
supposed to be
Scorn
the
player.
yeah, nobody played my faction. That's the whole reason I picked the faction, because I wouldn't have ever touched Scorn if nobody else played, or people would have been playing it.
Yeah. And so I decided very quickly, though, that Scorn was not really for me. So I switched over to Legion. And we're talking a lot about mostly the Horde side of things. Like most of what we've mentioned has been Hordes, because there is two different games. There's Warmachine and Hordes, and they're compatible with each other. But I played Legion, which was at the time considered the strongest Hordes faction because it had such a strong ranged game. And I proceeded to just I got Lilith 2, and I just started obliterating everything. It wasn't even like fun to win. It was just like I shoot everything, I win. Haha. Like it was just boring. So I got Rias, who is considered the worst caster in Legion, and I proceeded to start getting beaten again. But my gosh, she was so much fun. She was an assassin caster, so she would you'd be trying to hit their caster with yours, and if you failed to win, like to kill him right there, it was over. Like you just lose. So yeah, but it was so much fun playing her and trying to figure out how to make her work. I feel like I did pretty good, but
Well, I actually picked up Legion when we went to one of their or conventions or whatever. Because I will say, when I originally was starting out, everybody just said, pick a faction that you think the models look really cool. You're going to spend a ton of time painting them, playing with them. Just pick which one you think looks cool and play that. Well, I really actually looked at all of them. I knew I wanted to play Hordes. I did. The Warmachine idea was cool, but I knew I wanted to play Hordes. I just loved the idea of the War Beast. So as I was looking at all of them, I actually was leaning towards Circle and Legion. Those were the two I wanted. Well, a couple other people were at the same night where they were teaching everybody how to play. And one of the guys that I knew, I actually knew him in high school. He actually goes, I'm picking the Legion. And they only had one Legion box. So he took it and bought it, and that was that. Well, I talked to the store owner because he offered a 20% discount if you purchase it that night. And he goes, if you will promise me you will buy the Legion box, I will order you in one right now and give you the same discount. And I should have stuck to my guns and done that, but I was like, I kept being like, I wanted to be unique, so that's when I went with Scorn.
yeah.
After I got into Legion, I started playing them. I never lost one flipping game with Legion. because they just can ignore everybody's stuff. And I was like,
Yeah.
forget it. I'm
They
done.
they were just so boring to play because it was just like the war beasts and everything were just so good. Like,
So just for anybody who doesn't understand, a lot of people will use something called stealth. Stealth, back when I played, you had to be within like 6 inches of the model to be able to cast a spell at them or to be able to shoot them with a ranged attack.
Yep.
Well, so a lot of people use stealth to get around a lot of things. Legion had something called
Eyeless
Farsight
sight.
or eyeless sight. And so they just ignored everything and they ignored all the penalties. Now they could kind of be a glass cannon where if they got attacked, but there was ways to get around that using people's abilities. And so you had you were super fast. You ignored absolutely everything, and they had great crowd control. Plus, they also they hit like freaking tanks, every single one of them. So you just ignored everything.
Yep. Yeah, it was insane. Yeah, they ended up being just boring. So I went back to Circle. But yeah, we've definitely kind of skipped ahead in what I had as our talking points, but that's all right. So I wanted to talk about the game honestly isn't really around anymore, which does really suck because it was a really fun game. I don't honestly know what happened to it because I had fallen off a little bit before the game died. Did you play it much after I moved?
For a little bit, I more or less, the other two people that I kind of got along with kind of also started fading out, and they started playing different games, so it didn't mean a whole lot to me, and I dropped out.
Gotcha.
I have looked
Okay.
up what did happen to the game, and it's just Privateer Press unfortunately made some bad business decisions, and more or less, also people just stopped playing it. They just lost
Gotcha.
interest in it. So
Okay.
local stores don't support it anymore, which means there's nobody to play it with.
Yeah, it was actually kind of funny. Like, I went in. My sister has started playing the card game Lorcana, and she asked me to go into the game store and buy her a booster box of Lorcana. And while I was in there, I was looking at some of the models and stuff because they have pre uh, previously owned models, and I was looking. I was like, "That looks like a Kador model. That is a Kador model. That's the Kador symbol." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, do you guys have Warmachine here?" And the guy was like, "Yeah, there's like a ton of people who play here." I was like, "Really? That's awesome!" And I was like, "Maybe I'll get back into it." He's like, "Yeah, no, on I think he said Saturdays, these tables are full of people playing Warhammer." And I was like, "You don't even know what I'm talking about." I was
Yeah,
just like, "Dang it!"
I talked to the local game stores here. One of them carries models, and I asked if they carried any Privateer Press stuff. And this was a shop that opened up about 2 years after the shop that we played at closed down. And he
Mhm.
said they never had even purchased a Privateer Press anything.
Dang,
So,
that's too bad. All right,
but
well,
you still can officially play it, but you need to have a 3D printer and then buy their models for it, and they still have rules out
oh,
there. But
okay.
yeah, that means you need to have your own table, which could be a little difficult.
Yeah. So some other games. So I wanted to talk a little bit about Privateer Press. So they've stopped supporting War Machine and Hordes, like officially making models and stuff to sell. But other games that they have made that I have still seen around. I haven't seen them here in Arizona, but when I was living in Oklahoma, I saw a lot of Monpok stuff, Monster Apocalypse. Is there any other games that they've made that really took off?
No, the only ones I know about are the ones that didn't take off, like level 7. I don't remember the
Oh,
other ones.
I forgot about that one. I wanted to play that really bad. That looked fun.
Yeah, that one apparently was crap. But
Oh, that's too bad. And then I know they did like an even smaller version of War Machine. I can't remember what it was called, but it was close to like what Necromunda is to Warhammer, where it's like just a squad of guys, and I cannot for the life of me remember what that one was called. I
yeah,
think it was like called
that would have came
Warcaster or something like that.
that would have came out after I stopped playing. So that one's a no for me.
Yeah.
For knowing.
So we've thrown out a lot of terms and stuff. So let's talk about the game itself a little bit. So kind of basic breakdown of the rules, and I'm trying to remember them because it's been years since I played. But you had your Warcaster or Warlock, depending on if you were playing Warmachine or Hordes. That was like the king in chess, where if you lost them, you lost the game. They were a powerful spellcaster and usually had some melee abilities. Some of them definitely didn't have melee abilities. They just were spellcasters or ranged units. But examples of those are like the names we've been throwing out, like Rias, Lilith. My favorite from Circle was Kaya. Who were some of your favorite warlocks?
I'm trying to remember. Xerxes definitely.
He was cool.
I don't remember the main lady's caster's name. She was Moloch Karn's Infinity caster, and I don't remember that.
Oh,
Morgul was that. Those were the top 3 that I usually played.
yeah. And then they had multiple different editions. I know they had at least 3. Did you say they had a 4th edition?
They could. I don't remember off the top of my head. I know they had
Okay.
3 for sure.
Okay. Yeah, I played mostly 2nd edition. They were coming out with those rules when I started. Like I think they had officially been released. Like they were in their final like playtest / full release when I started, and then they came out with the 3rd edition rules, and I got lost trying to figure out even how to get the cards and stuff for those. Like they had an app and everything that I didn't like their app, but the old app that they had was really good for the 2nd edition stuff, but I could not figure out the 3rd edition.
Yeah, the app was really good. So, but just to give a little bit more clarification, so on the Warmachine side, where you're using more or less mechs, your Warcaster sends power out to the mechs,
Mhm.
and the power that you have built up, I think they called it focus.
Yep, focus and
You'd also
fury.
use it to cast spells. So we'll just say a guy had like 6 focus. So you could spend up to 6 points. Each spell would cost a different amount of it, or you could put some of them onto the warjacks to make them hit harder, roll better, just kind of do whatever they did. If you didn't spend them, your warcaster got 1 more armor when he was being attacked. Hordes, and at the end of the turn or the beginning of the next turn, the Warcaster got all of his focus back. Yeah. So when on the Horde side, though, you collected your was it Fury? Is that what they called it?
Yep, fury.
So you'd be able to use your War Beast every time it would attack. You'd have to put a little token on it. They only could hold so much, and if they went over that, there was a chance they could go wild and attack you. But you'd collect it off of them, so you were trying to do this balancing act on using your War Beast enough to collect spells. But the big difference was with that one, you didn't get to get more armor. What you do is you could push damage that went onto your caster, onto your war beast, which you usually didn't want to do because it meant you were in quite a bit of trouble at that moment. Or you also could heal with it. That was the really big advantage you had in Hordes versus Warmachine. But over the course of an attrition game, Warmachine definitely was a lot more powerful because their things became a lot more effective. When you were playing Hordes and you started losing your war beast, your caster more or less became pretty useless.
Yeah, if you lost all your war beast, you would have to take a point of damage per fury you wanted back. So if you lost your war beasts, suddenly you lose access to magic unless you're wanting to damage yourself.
Yeah, so it got really bad, and a lot of casters had between like 12 and 20 health, just depending on what it was. So you could not keep up an attrition fight at all when that happened.
Yeah. So we've also been throwing out names like, Kador, Crix, Circle, and those are different factions of the game. So in Hordes there were 5 factions, I think, right?
Well, they started doing the sub ones because you had Legion, Circle, Scorn, Trolls, and then they started doing the minions. So yeah, 5.
Yeah, so yeah, there was Circle or Boros, which is we just call Circle, and that was like kind of druids. They did like werewolves and construct, like stone constructs. Like think like if Stonehenge got up and started punching stuff. That was Circle or Boros. Then there was the Legion of Everblight, which we call Legion. That was this big dragon gave a piece of his heart to his casters, and then they were able to control the war beasts and stuff, which were these weird kind of draconic amalgamations, which is why a lot of people went to that one because it was very cool and dragony. And also, you didn't have to paint eyes because everything didn't have eyes. Then there were the Troll Bloods. They were these like humanoid. Trolls. They were just really big humanoid guys that were, kind of Scottish, I'd say, right?
Yes, very much
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. They did like I think one of their guys is literally called a caber tosser, where he'd literally throw a giant caber at people. But yeah, they were. And then the war beasts for them were their big, aggressive, much stupider cousins that were the true trolls. And then Scorn, you know a lot more about Scorn than I do, so I'm going to let you talk about them.
Scorn was just more or less like desert people that loved having slaves.
Yeah.
That was pretty much what they are, and then they just abused them to power them up.
Yeah, they were kind of like desert elves a little bit. A lot of them had pointy ears.
That's
stuff.
a good way.
Yeah.
If you know Dune universe, it's more or less like House Harkonnen.
Oh, okay.
The best way I can describe them as elves.
And then there were the minions factions. There was 2 different kinds of minions. There was the what were they called? They weren't croc folk.
You had the Gators and then the
Gators.
Pig people.
Yeah,
don't
Pigmen
remember
and
what their
Gators.
faction names were. They
Yeah,
were coming out with those near the tail end of when I stopped playing.
Yeah. Originally, the minions were just things that they could be hired on by any of the other armies. But then they started getting their own warcaster or warlocks and their own, it became a fleshed out faction. Now, in Warmachine, they started out with 4 also. And there were the Signar, which is kind of like British high electricity type stuff. Like it's set in kind of like a steampunk universe, but these guys were discovering electricity as well. So it was like, a little bit higher technology. And they had like gun mages where they would shoot their spells, which I thought was super cool. And then there was Kador, which is basically Russia. They literally would ride around on like polar bears and stuff like that. Who else was there?
Menoth, which
Menoth.
is more or less like a church, just an obsessed church.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Catholic Church, Crusaders, and then
you also
who was
had
the
Menoth. John played them. They were like angry elves. They're really cool looking jags.
Yeah, that was
remember the name of the
Retribution of Scion, but those ones came out after. I know there was 4 core ones. Who was the 4th? There was Kador, Signar, Menoth, Crix. We talked about
Crix. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm thinking Crix. The Undead Legion is what they are.
Those guys had way too much going on. Like, I was trying to describe them to people, and I was like, they're dragon worshipping undead pirates. Yeah.
Crix were probably the most powerful faction in the game through the whole thing. One of
Yeah.
the upper echelons had to have been playing them. They were like Space Marines. They got a new iteration every time you blinked, and everybody else had to wait their turn.
Yeah. And then they came out with another faction for Warmachine called the Retribution of Scion, which is really angry elves. And they had a very interesting, very sleek warjack. Like they were very futuristic looking for the time period. And then they
They
came
also
out
had
with,
shields on all their stuff.
yes, they had overshields and everything. They were kind of a pain in the butt to deal with sometimes. And then they had the mercenaries, which you had again a couple different like factions inside the mercenaries. There was the dwarves, which were super cool. There was the French people. I can't remember what their Valise or something like that.
I just remember their caster being McBain. I don't
Yeah,
remember the rest of it.
and then but they were basically based on the French Revolution. And then I want to say there was just some like random stuff that wasn't in an actual faction. It was just out there.
It very well could have been.
Yeah, and then right before I stopped playing, well, they came out with two more factions for them. There was the Convergence of Cyrus, or Cirrus, I can't remember how to pronounce it, but it was like a clockwork faction, which I thought was really neat. And then after I quit playing, they came out with the Orgoth, and I never understood how their stuff worked. Did you know anything
That
about them? Was that after you too?
from what it sounded like, I thought I played longer than you. I think you played longer than me.
I just followed the news. I didn't keep playing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. I was following the news. That's why I don't know how it at all happened. But I exclusively played Hordes when I was living in Utah, and then when I moved back to Arizona the first time, I actually did pick up Signar for a few months, and I had a very similar thing with where it was with Legion, where I just wasn't losing ever. And I'm the type of person that I prefer my games to just be fun. I don't need to win, and so it was very boring. Um, the theme of Signar is very cool, but the actual like play style of them is not super fun, in my opinion.
Right.
Um,
It's just
yeah. I did enjoy their Storm Knights, I think they were called. The guys who had like the lightning lances that were like really slow plotting forward and they zap people. Those guys were cool.
those guys were cool.
Yeah.
They had some cool models.
Yeah. And then the gun mages had the coolest like flavor in the entire game, in my opinion. Like they would etch their spells into their bullets and then fire them off through that. Like that was just neat. And my favorite caster was Alistair Kane. Specifically, I liked the version 1 of him. The version 2 was one of the strongest casters in the game, but the version 1 was just so much fun. Like he was so much cooler.
The one that always made me so mad from Signar was I want to say his name was Jeremiah or something like that
Jeremiah
because
Crane.
this guy could have all of his jacks move up as long as they were like light jacks, shoot you, and then move back. I
Yep.
played Scorn where I was only like at a full run with my guys moving 8 inches. They're moving like 16 inches, and I never could catch them. I
Yeah.
hated them like so much.
I never got to play him because his stuff was super expensive to buy. But oh man, he looked fun.
Like any other army would just wreck them because they could get in there and just tear it apart. I was like, not Scorn. Nope, nope,
Yeah.
nope. And then they had armor
Yeah.
piercing, so they ignored my high armor.
Yep. And
I hated
then
that. He was the worst caster to play against.
so there were some offshoots from Warmachine, like I had talked about earlier. There was, I think it was called Warcaster, but the one that I really wanted to talk about was the they've changed it to just a D20 system, but I wanted to talk about their D6 system, which was Full Metal Fantasy Iron Kingdoms RPG. Did you ever
I
get to
love
play
that
that?
system.
Okay,
Oh,
good.
you did a couple of games with us. We didn't do a
Yeah,
ton of it, but
yeah.
I liked that system.
Oh my gosh, that to this day is my favorite system of RPG that I've ever played, and it taught me that like the class systems and stuff do not mean you have to play your class a certain way. It's the reason I can play paladins today. Because I used to hate paladins because they were just these holier than thou, like just, lawful stupid, like, ugh. But once they got rid of the requirement to be lawful good, and I played Iron Kingdoms, because like in it, it literally says like the name of the thing doesn't really mean anything other than it's gonna kind of give you an idea of what the abilities are. But just because your career is cutthroat doesn't mean you have to be a criminal. You can be this, and this. Like you can, be like an undercover person who's like just trying to like uncover things and all that stuff, or you can go the criminal route, or you can go this, that, and the other thing. And I'm just like, that just makes sense. So now my rogues aren't always these edgy, little, creeper guys, and my barbarians aren't just big stupid I punch things, and my paladins aren't lawful stupid. I can add flavor, and it feels so much better. But the rules for it were just great. It
They
it
were.
used yeah, like, it used very similar rules to the war game where you'd take duty 6, roll it, you'd add your to hit and compare it to their defense, and then you'd roll again and add your weapon's power against their armor, and that's how much damage you'd deal. And to
Makes it
me,
just so
that
much easier of
system,
a system.
it is, and it makes sense. It makes you feel like your armor that you picked matters, because, like, you could actually pick like a high defense person and be hard to hit, or a high armor person and be hard to damage. Whereas in D&D and stuff, it's like, oh, I don't wear armor, and so, yeah, I've got high dex, but that gets me to like a 14. Cool. Um, and it makes so much more sense. Oh my gosh. I want so bad to play a game of Iron Kingdoms again. I still have my books and everything, and yeah, I want to play it so bad. That's
Yeah,
honestly what,
it's a fun
I
one.
want to base my yeah. I want to I want to make an RPG, and I want it to be based off of that rule system. I just don't know how much of it I can use legally. So
Yeah,
yeah, but yeah, that's oh, and then the stories. Did you read any of the books or anything?
I did, but I don't remember squat because it's been way too many years.
That's fair.
I
I
remember
I
like the
read
Lions School that they did.
yeah. I read one of the Alistair Kane books, and it was really well written. I was very surprised at how good it was, because like I was used to Magic, which it's good. Like, don't get me wrong, the Magic lore books were fun reads, but they weren't super well written. But oh man, the Iron Kingdoms had some great authors. Like, I really enjoyed those characters. Um, Do you have any war stories or fun, like, interactions that you remembered that you did in any of the
Oh yeah,
games?
I can do. Got two that come to mind. Playing. Don't remember the caster's name. It was like Hexus or Hexagal. I don't remember from
Exorus.
Scorn. Hexerus.
It's
Yes,
Hexorus.
Hexerus.
Yep.
And Darius challenged me to a game. I lost one model. That was kind of fun. He got to bring people back to life. I used the same one against Menoth John. I lost one model. He went home really mad. That was probably like my coolest thing. I will admit, one other time against Darius, I thought this one was kind of funny. We were playing, and I was playing P Morgul, which means just Prime Morgul, which is their first iteration.
Yep.
And you had a little ruler where it was like a quarter of an inch for people who didn't have reach, could hit you,
Mhm.
and then it was like a 2-inch length if they had reach if they could hit you. Well, he moves his person up like right next to my caster, and I was like, "This is BS." I was so mad, and then he goes, "Here, I've got a thing to check if they're in rage." And he goes for it. I grab the bottle and move it back like just the 3/8 of an inch, just barely. And then he puts it down. He goes, "Oh, I guess I failed." I was like, "Yeah!" Everybody in the room was laughing.
I didn't even notice.
No, he didn't even notice, and then I just beat the crap out of his caster.
Yeah, because I always played casters that like would get into the thick of things. Like I did not enjoy doing ranged casters. I liked melee, and so I love going on assassination runs with my caster, where you just run up and kill theirs and win the game. And there were times where I definitely lost because of it, but
And I
yeah.
will say the other one. I'd feel bad for cheating, but we were playing a tournament, and you were playing Legion.
Hmm.
I don't remember the beast, but he had like two huge like claws. He looked kind of like what was their main one?
The
The
Carnivian.
carnivore Carnivian. He looked kind of like the Carnivian, just an iteration of it. And you charged my caster.
Oh yeah, the not the
You
Ravagore, but the Scythian.
Yeah, you totally cheated on that one. I'm gonna call you out on that one because you're like, yeah, that was in rage. I'm like, you charged like 16 inches. I'm like, that was BS.
Yeah, no, I was playing Rias. She had an ability to give him more range. Like that was a legit charge.
I remember looking at it, like even looking at it after, but he had already moved it, so I couldn't put it back to check the rage. I was like, yeah, that was BS. I'm calling you out on cheating on that one.
I'm pretty sure that was legit, but I'll give it to you.
He missed the attack anyway, and so
Yeah, I
his
did.
dice completely whiffed out, so it didn't do anything. But I was like, "That's bullcrap. You're cheating on the thing, so I don't feel cheating or cheating on the P Morgul." That one was a casual game. I totally did it just to be funny. I was going to admit it after, but I didn't, and we just walked away laughing.
Yeah. So my two that well, actually, there's three that I really remember. So there was one that I was playing. Two of them were actually all three of these were I was playing Legion. Um, so there was one time I was in a tournament, and I still feel kind of bad about this, but it was a tournament that we were raising money for breast cancer awareness. And I was playing I built a really sweaty list, and it was Epic Lilith, which means her second iteration, and it was just a Ravagore line. So they shoot off these big, huge AoEs that deal tons of damage. And I was playing against this guy who was playing Kador, who is famous for really high armor. Well,
Was this
turn
in
one, I moved it.
Utah?
Yes. Um, turn one, I
I think I
moved
cheated
everything up.
anyway. I hope you slapped him around.
I, I moved everyone up. Second round, he moved everyone up. Second round, I popped Epic Lilith's Feet, which is a once per game ability that each caster has, and it gives all of my stuff. I think it was like an extra like 6 or 7 inches of range or something like that. And so suddenly everything had moved up, so his caster was in range of all of my Ravagores. So I just started shooting. And there was just these AoEs coming down, and one of the special rules for the breast cancer brawl was you could pay money to make your opponent reroll their rolls, or you could pay money to reroll yours. So my second shot killed his caster, but he was like, you know what? I'm going to make you reroll it. So I rerolled it. My second shot killed his caster. He proceeded to spend $20 on rerolls and still ended up dying. He picked up his dice and threw them across the room. He was so mad. Um, and and I just sat there and I felt really bad because I still had 2 attacks left even. So even if he stopped, stopped paying for rerolls, I still had more attacks. And I was trying to be friendly and I was like, "Can I buy you a soda?" And he's like, "Don't." And I was like, "Okay." And then it was in the same tournament. I was playing my second list, which was a Rias list, and I was playing against the other guy in the store that did play Scorn, but it wasn't very often. and he was playing his Scorn that day, and he was playing Xerxes, who again is really famous for high armor. And I went on an assassination run with Rias, and I just happened to get a critical, which Rias had an ability called Crit Decapitation, which means any damage you do is doubled. I dealt enough damage that I killed his caster. He pushed the damage off, so it went to his war beast. It killed the war beast, and the backlash killed his caster. It
I
was
remember that.
awesome. Yeah. Oh, I felt so cool.
I do for both of you. That one.
Yeah, and then my last one was after I had moved back to Arizona, and I was playing Rias, and I tried to do this really stupid thing. So in the game, throws are considered melee attacks because you have to pick them up, and it's a melee attack to pick them up, and then you throw them equal to your strength. Rias has her feat, which is after when you hit with a melee attack, you can teleport base to base with the model that you're attacking somewhere else, so you can kind of reposition your stuff so more stuff can get in. Well, I learned that you can pick up your own model, so my Carnivian was picking up a model, and I picked up Rias, and I threw it at his caster, and if I had hit, I would have been able to teleport to his caster with my Carnivian. I didn't. I missed. And Rias was now knocked down, which means she had no defense, and she had very little armor. And I was just like, oh, that would have been so cool. And then he proceeded to kill my caster. Because I had to have gone with Rias first to be able to pop her feet, so she didn't even get to attack at that one. And when they're knocked down, melee attacks automatically hit, and so she was just paced.
That's funny.
All right, so moving on to our mental health segment, Darkspring wanted to talk about secondary school, and I have only done one class, but I do really want to go back to school. I would like to go and get a history degree because I think that would be very, very neat and very fun. I don't know how useful it will be, but secondary education is always good. But I wanted to go ahead and give Darkspring some time to talk about this.
So I'm actually just going to question you a little bit. What do you think has kept you from going to school in the past?
I mean, my biggest thing was I wanted for so long to become an author, and I did not see value in the schooling because it is so expensive. Even sometimes with grants and stuff, it can be a little expensive, and I'm unfortunately not the most money minded person, so I don't understand how to get like all the other grants that would make it not as expensive.
Like a scholarship?
So, like scholarships and just like the like McDonald's grants, stuff like that. I know there's a lot of options out there. It's not been something I've been able to figure out even how to research. But because of the line of work that I've wanted to do, I didn't really feel it necessary.
Okay, that is fair. So just for mine, I'll just give a really brief background. Both of my parents do have secondary education degrees, so it was taught to us that it would be a good idea, but it was never really pushed that much. We were told we would be 100% responsible for our own secondary education. So I questioned quite a bit if I wanted to. Plus, also with being dyslexic and having some other learning disabilities, I kind of questioned if I would ever even get through college. When I was 21, I attempted to go to college. I failed my first semester, redid all the classes. I actually thought I failed again, but I actually ended up passing all of the classes. They were like C minuses, but I did get past them, and I didn't even know about it. I just kind of had given up. And I tried to go to community college for quite a while. The community college that was near me only did certificates. They didn't have like an associate's degree, or I would have done that. So I kind of middle farted getting a whole lot of certificates and just kind of taking a class here and there online, just whatever. But I ended up marrying somebody from Asia who has a lot of emphasis on education, and her family did as well. So when I was 29, I got told, I don't care what your degree is, but you will get a degree. So I ended up finishing up the certificate that I was working on. And then at the age of 30, I went back to college and I went and talked to him, showed him all the stuff that I had for certificates, got some college education from that. And then I went and I did this in 2 years, but I did do summer school. So it was technically 6 semesters. So it would have been equivalent of I would have been rejoining college as a sophomore. And
Okay.
I just went and I pushed my way through it. I will say I am so glad to be done with it. I remember waking up at 11:50 at night and just completely and utterly panicking and opening up. They called it Canvas, was the online program that we used back then, and just to double check to make sure that all my homework was in and all this stuff. I'll tell you a really funny story about that one. So I had a history teacher, and she demanded that we write a paragraph about what the class was that day. Well, as I was up at 11:50 checking all of my Canvas notes, I saw I didn't do her assignment. So, so I'm just trying to get the 3 questions in, and we were talking about the Civil War. And so it said, what was today's history lesson about? And I put the North and the South at war. And then I don't remember what the other questions were. I just submitted them as fast as I could because my internet could take a minute too to submit them. I think I got them in at 11:58 or 11:59. It submitted and said I did it. Well, the very next class, the teacher goes, "We need to talk about what you guys submit for your assignments for the day." And she put my answers up on the board.
Oh no.
And this was a remote class. She was teaching from a different site. I lost it. I started laughing so hard. Now, you got to remember, she couldn't see me. And the teacher's aide was sitting there looking at me. And she goes, "What's so funny?" She goes, "None of you answered that way." And I said, "Those are mine." And everybody was looking at me. And I said, "I logged in at 11:55 having forgot to do this assignment. And so I was just putting something in to get it." And everybody was just sitting there laughing. And they're like, "We all have been there before."
That's
That teacher was a
hilarious.
witch, by the way. So that was fun.
Yeah.
But just something I am going to say from graduating at the age of 32, finally getting through college, is I understand everybody who is out there and struggling with college. It was a complete and utter nightmare for me. The other part is I also was 10 to 12 years older than everyone. So everybody applauds people going back to college in their older
Yeah.
age. But all those people were in their late 40s to mid 50s that were going back. I didn't fit in anywhere. There was nobody close to my age. There was nothing. So I felt so lonely during that time. Now, I did also have my wife and I had my friends and stuff, but because college was taking up so much time going to work, I was still having to work because the company I was working for, if I wanted to progress any, I did need to get an education. They were nice enough to let me go down to part time, but I had to devote so much time to school that it was just, it was horrible. Also, just taking the tests. I do very well at practical tests. I am absolutely horrendous at written tests. I have a hard time understanding the material. Plus, if I'm able to take it, cram it, and understand it right after the test, I am so relieved I forget everything that I studied. So it was nuts. College is also really expensive. Be very, very careful with student loans. I've seen a lot that wreck a lot of people after college. Just because you have a college degree doesn't mean you're going to make buco bank. Some
Yep.
education does do it, but not all of it. So, and it's the system we live in. So just be very, very careful with that. College definitely was some of the most stressful times that I had. Now, can I say I'm grateful for it? Well, I'm grateful to have my job, but I'm the rest of it's. I feel like an educated idiot is what I always say. So because I don't know. The certificates that I got, I definitely used, and I will say business communication and a couple other classes I definitely use in my responsibilities now, but most of it no. So
Okay.
that's my story of college.
Okay. Do you have any other questions for me? You said you're going to question me, and then you only asked me one.
I asked you too.
Did you ask me to?
So what? Here, I'll do a couple more.
Okay.
What do you think the odds of you going back are?
I feel like they're pretty good. Right now, I'm just kind of trying to save up some money, like with my wife and I. So we moved back from Oklahoma, and I'm currently living with my sister. She's renting out a room to us, and then she's going to sell us a small parcel of land, and we're going to build a house. And so I think after we're done with that is my plan. Because that's going to take up a lot of time. But I think that having a history degree would be a lot of, like, I enjoy history. I didn't think I did. I really didn't, but that was just because I had a really boring history teacher in high school. He was like possibly one of the worst history teachers there ever was. But I have learned through watching like different people on YouTube and stuff like that, that history is actually very interesting. And I would definitely highly suggest people look into not just your country's history, but world history. It is very, very interesting. And as the old adage goes, if you don't learn history, you're doomed to repeat it. So, yeah.
So
Okay,
the last question I'll ask, since this has been going on for a while, what is your greatest fear with going back?
So I have a slightly different approach with you. So I am a great test taker. As you guys noticed with me being able to recall like random names and stuff from, you know, probably 15 years ago playing Warmachine and still remembering, all these beasts and stuff's names, I can remember little bits of knowledge really easily. I am terrible at doing homework. Oh my gosh, I became a fifth year senior because I didn't do homework. Um, I ended up just getting my GED, and yeah, it that is the thing that I'm worried the most about is I'm going to fall into the same issue and I'm going to fail because of that.
I will say I'm really good at homework because that's where I know I can get most of my grade from is doing homework. My last semester in college, one of my classes, I actually I started out really, really strong in the class. On the first test, I got an A. On the second test, I got a B. On the third test, I got a C, and on the final, I got, I think, a 55, so I failed it. In the overall class, I got a B plus because I did all my homework and did all the rest. This is kind of a funny story that'll go with this one. So we're getting ready. I'm absolutely positive I'm going to pass the class because I checked the thing and did the math. As long as I got a 15% on my final, I would get a C minus and pass the class.
Nice.
So we're getting ready. We're going on this. We found really cheap flights to go somewhere for like $30 round trip. They were just doing this promo. So me and my wife were going to go there for graduation. We're standing in line to get on the plane. And I get a ping on my phone saying your test has been graded. I look at it and it says 0.
Oh,
I got an F in the class, or maybe it was a D plus. But regardless, I was sitting there. I am like completely and utterly panicking because I'm like, I have to redo another semester of college. I don't have enough money for this. I'm over there panicking. Well, when you email a teacher or call a teacher, you can expect it to take about 2 days for them to get back to you.
yeah.
I'm emailing him, sending him everything. I'm like, I took the test. I couldn't have got a 0. And he's like, oh, yeah, I was actually looking for your test because you were a really good student, but I just couldn't find it. And I'm sitting there, I was like, this is like 2 days after the final. I was like, if you can't find it, I will cancel this trip. I will come back and I will take this test right now. I was like, I did study for it. And he goes, oh, I found it. Let me hurry and grade it. Well, then I got a 55, and I was like, okay, I guess I can go on vacation. Bye. So if you go back, do all your homework and work hard on it.
Yeah, that's my biggest fear though, is I'm just not great at homework. So, but I have changed a lot through the years though. I now get very hyper focused. My ADHD is both a blessing and a curse. So when I'm really wanting to do something, I hyper focus hard on it. And so I maybe can do that. So I'm gonna definitely try.
Oh, you'll do good at it. You're a smart guy. You'll get through it if you decide you want to do it.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us today. If you enjoyed the episode, go ahead and give us a subscribe and comment on what you think about different war games and what's your favorite war game. And if you have any cool stories or anything, and if you played Warmachine. But until next time, thank you guys so much for joining us today. Have a good one.
Thank you, everyone.